Welcome back. Democrats are taking their fight to oust acting AG Matthew Whitaker all the way to the courts, claiming that his appointment is a violation of the Constitution's Appointments Clause. So do they have a case? Joining me now with expert insight is constitutional attorney Chris Gober. Thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Good morning.
So as we begin our discussion, we can pull up the Democratic senators who are suing to stop the Whitaker appointment. These are 3 Democratic senators. They filed this lawsuit on Monday in federal court. What do you expect, if anything, to come of this?
Well, this lawsuit is based on a provision of the Constitution that requires cabinet members and other top government officials to get confirmed by the United States Senate. And while both sides of this controversy are making some legitimate arguments, I think that President Trump here has the benefit and the advantage of saying that his position, supported by Supreme Court precedent, acts of Congress spanning 3 decades, dating back to 1792, and at least hundreds of instances where presidents have made similar appointments in the past.
And here's what actually, as you mentioned that, we can say what the Justice Department said. Here's their statement. They said there are over 160 instances in American history in which non-Senate confirmed persons performed on a temporary basis the duties of a Senate confirmed position. To suggest otherwise is to ignore centuries of practice and precedent. And that's what you were just saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually 160 cases, and that was until 1860. So even since 1860, we've seen many more examples, even than that first 160.
And you also said that it comes down to what? A 2-word phrase in the Constitution, principal officer.
Yeah, and, you know, there's a lot of noise surrounding this appointment of Whitaker because of the Mueller probe, but the legal question in this case is really quite simple. It comes down to the meaning of principal officer and whether an acting attorney general is considered a principal officer under the Constitution. There's no doubt that whoever Trump nominates to serve as the attorney general for the remainder of his term, they'll be a principal officer that requires Senate confirmation. But that doesn't necessarily apply to an acting attorney general who's appointed temporarily and is going to serve no more than 210 days.
Now, there have been some challenges to his authority as special counsel. So Robert Mueller, he took some pains to issue this statement. He said that the president, he actually issued this statement saying that the president's designation of acting attorney general Matthew G. Whitaker on November 7th has no effect on this case whatsoever.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, at the end of the day, Robert Mueller's authority as a special counsel is based on one set of laws. President Trump's authority to appoint Matthew Whitaker as acting attorney general is based on another set of laws. And even though we like to conflate the two and how they may interact with each other on facts, it all comes down to it's based off different laws, and the courts will be looking at these lawsuits very differently and through different lenses.
Now, something that, and we have to wrap up, but something that you said, you don't expect this to go all the way to the Supreme Court, but you said it would be interesting for people to see if it did, because you would expect this would not necessarily break the way people would expect it to.
Yeah, I think that it splits, you know, in favor of Trump based off of precedent, but I actually don't think it splits along ideological lines. I would actually expect that liberal justices Sotomayor and Ginsburg could be leading the contingent of justices that rule in favor of Donald Trump, whereas a conservative justice like Clarence Thomas could be leading the contingent of justices that rule against Donald Trump. So that could be pretty interesting to see.
Interesting. All right, Chris, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Have a great day.